Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're digging into something big, a story with huge stakes that goes way beyond just where you grab your morning coffee. We're talking Starbucks. They're in the middle of this massive $1 billion turnaround effort.
Yeah, and that number $1 billion, it really tells you how deep the trouble was. We're talking 6 straight quarters where same-store sales dropped in the U.S. That's their biggest market. I mean, it was a clear sign the old way just wasn't cutting it anymore.
So our mission today, let's get specific. We need to unpack what the CEO, Brian Niccol, is doing. It's this high-risk, high-reward plan they're calling Back to Starbucks. And we want to see how this iconic brand plans to fight back against rivals, global rivals, who are all about speed and, well, low prices. We're really trying to isolate the actual changes you, the customer, should be noticing, like right now.
Exactly. The key is understanding this fundamental shift in focus. Is Starbucks trying to compete by being cheaper, faster? Or are they doubling down on this thing they call choreographed hospitality? It's a really interesting pivot.
Okay, let's start with the pain, the problems that led to this. You mentioned the financials, 6 quarters of decline in the U.S. For a company like Starbucks, that's almost unheard of. Nicole came in about a year ago, right? And his message seemed to be, we can't just tweak things.
No, definitely not. And those initial costs, they're a real gut punch to the balance sheet. This turnaround, it's estimated at $1 billion in restructuring costs. And get this, our sources say something like 90% of that, so almost the whole billion, is aimed squarely at fixing North America. That's where the real bleeding was.
And part of stopping the bleeding involves some pretty deep cuts, corporately speaking. Nicole's done 2 big rounds of layoffs now. There were 1,100 positions cut earlier. And then just recently, another 900 non-retail folks. And here's a detail from the sources I found fascinating. They actually asked corporate staff to work from home when the notifications were happening.
Wow. Yeah, that tells you something about how sensitive and probably how widespread those cuts were. It speaks volumes about the seriousness of this whole restructuring. But it's not just corporate jobs, right? They're also shrinking the physical footprint strategically. They're closing hundreds of stores in North America. Even with some new openings, the net result is about a 1% reduction in their total North American store count.
And it's not just about closing stores losing money, is it? The criteria seem broader, more about the brand feel.
Exactly right. They're targeting stores that just can't create that expected physical environment or ones without a clear path back to profitability. Basically, if a store feels chaotic, rundown, or just off-brand, it's potentially on a chopping block. And what's really eye-opening and shows Niccol isn't afraid to, break some icons, is the closure of some really famous spots, including the flagship roastery and even a reserve store right there at the Seattle headquarters.
Wait, the roastery in Seattle? They closed that. The place that was supposed to be the pinnacle of the premium experience they want to save? That feels huge. Almost like admitting defeat on that front, or like closing the Magic Factory.
It's incredibly bold, yeah. It signals that even an expensive, iconic location, if it can't run efficiently or deliver that perfect environment consistently, well, doesn't fit the new plan. Seems like no part of the old way is safe if it's dragging things down or confusing the message.
Okay, so problems identified. $1 billion in costs absorbed through cuts, closures, even iconic ones. Now let's pivot. What's the actual plan? What are they buying with that $1 billion? Which brings us to the core strategy, this green apron service model.
Right. This is where the investment is really going. It's all about getting back to that customer connection. Niccol's core idea is back to being a customer service organization. The focus is on great experiences in a timely manner. They realized that all the heavy discounting they were doing, it was actually hurting the brand's premium feel. So they're pulling back from that. The idea is to reinforce the value of the experience itself.
And that experience doesn't come cheap. You mentioned $500 million earlier, right? Half the restructuring budget, basically, going straight into labor and hospitality. That's a lot of cash aimed at the human element.
It is. And that translates directly into things like more staff hours, bigger teams on the floor, more partners, as they call them. Especially during those busy rush times, the goal is pretty straightforward. Less chaos, a better interaction. Niccol's actually claiming they're already seeing their value scores improve a lot simply because they're prioritizing that human touch over just pushing volume.
But it's not just about having more people around. The source material really emphasizes how controlled this is. This green apron service model sounds incredibly scripted, like down to the specific words and gestures. I have to ask, doesn't that risk feeling a bit fake? This choreographed kindness?
That's the tightrope they're walking, isn't it? They seem to believe that consistency is more important than the risk of it feeling artificial. The mandate is, if you, the customer, walk into any Starbucks, you should notice this difference because it's being actively trained and enforced. Baristas are coached, apparently quite rigorously, on making immediate eye contact, smiling, saying specific things like, "Welcome to Starbucks," and even personalizing the handoff, like saying, "Your caramel macchiato looks so good," not just shouting a name.
Yeah, I read that too. The part about baristas being expected to write little handwritten notes on cups, smiley faces, "Have a nice day." Ah, that sounds like a huge time suck, honestly, just for a tiny moment of connection in a world that's getting faster and more transactional.
But that's the whole point, right? It's about deliberately manufacturing those small moments that differentiate them and, theoretically, justify the premium price. And they're even standardizing how to handle screw-ups. Every employee gets trained on this latte process. It's an acronym. Listen, apologize, take action, thank, and ensure satisfaction. They want fixing a problem to be just as consistent as making the drink.
Okay, but all that focus on service, it kind of falls apart if the operational side is chaos, especially with mobile orders, right?
Oh, absolutely. And they know it. That's why they're rolling out this smart queue technology. The goal is to better sequence mobile orders, to cut down on that in-store confusion that frustrates everyone, baristas and customers waiting. So the system tries to prevent baristas from making drinks for people who are still, 10 minutes away while someone's waiting right there at the counter. It prioritizes proximity.
Okay, that makes sense. And for those of us who actually liked using Starbucks as a third place to sit,
They're working on that too, renovating over 1,000 locations, specifically to improve the atmosphere. That means bringing back more comfortable seating, standardizing the decor a bit, basically reversing some of those changes from the pandemic when they pulled out chairs. They actively want you to linger again.
it really sounds like a full reset back towards comfort and connection. But here's a question. The world's speeding up. How do they handle new menu items if the main focus is fixing the core experience?
Well, Nichols' philosophy seems pretty strict on this. Nail the core business first. Execute it perfectly. He talks a lot about having the best brewed coffee and specifically mentions the Clover Vertica machine.
The Clover Vertica. What's the significance there?
It's not just the coffee quality, though they claim that's top-notch. Strategically, it's about speed. That machine apparently goes from bean to cup in about 25 seconds. That speed lets them compete with the quick transactional places without sacrificing the perception of craft coffee, which supports the premium price.
Ah, okay. So new things like protein cold foam or protein milk or matcha, those are only okay if they add to the experience and don't slow down that core execution, that craft and personalization that Clover enables.
Precisely. Because the competition, they aren't betting on craft, they're betting purely on speed and price. And the elephant in the room, especially in China, but increasingly visible elsewhere, maybe even the U.S. soon, is Luckin Coffee.
The numbers on Luckin are just staggering. They're now the biggest coffee chain in China, almost 26,000 locations globally.
That dwarfs Starbucks is 8,000 in China, and even there's 17,000 here in the U.S. And their whole model is the polar opposite of this green apron thing. Luckin is almost entirely mobile order focused, minimal human interaction, super fast wait times, low labor costs. And they lean hard into coupons, often 30, 40, even 50% off that drive volume like crazy, build brand awareness that way. They'll even run new stores at a loss initially, just optimizing for transactions. It's pure efficiency, not comfort.
And we should probably mention Luckin's backstory, right? The crazy growth, the US IPO, then that huge accounting scandal. They fabricated something like $310 million in sales. Got delisted, went through bankruptcy.
Yeah, a very rocky past.
Yeah.
But they emerged from bankruptcy in 2022, and they're back on a massive growth trajectory. They're an aggressive, lean competitor. And knowing that history makes Starbucks' position on price even more interesting, Nichol is completely against getting into a discount war. He sees it as a race to the bottom that just cheapens the brand. Starbucks insists it's a premium brand offering a premium experience. He actually said they feel they're priced correctly right now, and this is key, he believes their core customers are generally price insensitive.
Wow. So it's really becoming a stark choice for the customer, isn't it? Super efficient, discounted coffee with almost no interaction, or this highly choreographed, human-centric experience at a premium price.
That seems to be the bet. And Nichol is claiming it's starting to pay off. He says the turnaround is actually ahead of schedule. He's pointing to what he calls early green shoots as proof that this green apron model is catching on, even at scale.
They did mention recording their best sales week ever recently, right after the fall drinks launched. That does suggest that if they get the execution right, people are still willing to come back and pay that price. And they're apparently getting new customers, too, both rewards members and non-members, which is crucial if they want to broaden their appeal again.
And don't forget the global picture. China provides a huge opportunity and maybe some stability while they fix North America. They only have 8,000 stores there now, but Starbucks projects China to eventually support 20,000, maybe even 30,000 stores. That's massive potential.
And the sources suggest the China business has kind of stabilized through smarter marketing, some targeted innovation, and getting the pricing structure right. So that global strength basically buys Nickel some breathing room, some capital to manage this huge, potentially bumpy transformation back home.
Yeah, exactly. So when you ask Nickel what success looks like for the next year, his answer is actually pretty simple, almost foundational. It's just stay focused, consistently execute that green apron service model. Keep striving to be the world's best customer-centric company. It's very back to basics, trying to turn the ship by fixing the core engine, kind of like how McDonald's or Walmart did their big turnarounds years ago.
So wrapping this up, what we've seen is Starbucks making this enormous billion-dollar gamble. They're betting heavily that investing in human connection in this very deliberate, choreographed premium experience can win out. Win out against this massive consumer shift toward just getting things fast and cheap, the model championed by rivals like Luckin.
The fundamental tension here is just fascinating. Starbucks is trying to industrialize kindness, essentially. Scripting the smiles, the phrases, the recovery process, all to justify that higher price. And given that the competition, like Luckin, is actively designing humans out of the transaction wherever possible. Well, it leads us with a big question, a question for you, the listener, to think about. In a world racing towards automation and pure transaction, how long can this kind of highly choreographed, human-delivered experience remain a winning strategy? How long can it be the key competitive edge in the global coffee war?